If you recall, the United States established alongside Britain, typically, the Genocide Coalition. The Genocide Coalition was formed out of Britain and the UK after they failed to attract more countries. You know, they wanted a 7-8 country coalition. And some of the European countries told them, yeah, sure, we'll send you an observer, you know, to see how you fight with them. They didn't want to go. They didn't want this headache. But the British and American administrations, they want to show how loyal they are to the Zionists. So they went with this coalition under so many falsehoods, you know, protecting international trade. They were imposing a fully legitimate blockade on a genocidal entity. And only that entity. And you went to protect that entity. Then, when the United States understood, especially when Donald Trump understood that the Ansarullah in Yemen, they will not stop. They were negotiating with them from the beginning with the Omani mediation. They're not going to stop. He hit them, and he hit them again and again and again. Then they reached the ceasefire. He left Israel to deal with them on their own. The British administration, of course, followed like an obedient poodle because of the influence of the United States. But now, Yemen is saying, we're going to target US oil firms with sanctions. There's a committee in Yemen that is in charge of, sanctions in the Red Sea. They're sanctioning 13 US oil firms, including ExxonMobil, Chevron, and ConocoPhillips. Sanctions list also include company CEOs. They're saying here unclear if sanctions mean targeting vessels, according to certain analysts. However, it is very likely that they're going to be targeting vessels too. How, why, and how? Let's contextualize everything. One day after the peace deal of Donald Trump, the surrender deal, and simultaneously with dangerous moves coming from the United States in what appears to be a preparation to strike Iran again with certain tankers and aircraft moving to Europe, similar to what happened before that attack, reaching peak tensions with Iran now. And Donald Trump potentially having this peace, great peace, as a cover-up, to tell everyone, oh, look, we're almost going to have a deal and what have you. Yemen comes and does that. Now, that doesn't mean that Yemen works for anyone, by the way. Yemen, Ansarullah in Yemen in particular, by the way, not the other corrupt government backed by the Saudi establishment, and that they conducted a war against the Yemeni people with their mercenaries. No, we're talking about Ansarullah in Yemen, the only real open front 24/7 regardless. No negotiation, no talking. So long as the genocide continues and the siege is not lifted, we're going to continuously attack you. They have their own will, but they consider developments. Well, the first development is, well, they feel like there is mounting pressure potentially on the Palestinian resistance because they're subject to the pressure, the Palestinian resistance first and foremost. And then the free people of the world, everyone who supports the rights of the Palestinian people. They said we need to make this move to show that we are here as a solid front for them. Like when they escalated their attacks on Israel before the previous ceasefire and confirmed that this move is coming to support the Palestinian negotiator so that they can reach a good deal. And if Israel breaches, we will be monitoring and we will conduct and open that front and conduct more attacks against them. But chances are there is some sort of link also to the threats that are coming against Iran too. Why? Because Yemen is saying Yemen said before, Ansarullah, we will be the front of all countries facing aggression, so long as they declare outright who their enemies are. We will be their front. We're willing to support them, Syria, Lebanon, everyone. But at least say that I'm against Israel. Therefore, they're positioning themselves in a very important position. And now they targeted another ship called Minervagracht in a drone. They're preparing the ground that this, what you're seeing now, we have more of that and we are able to escalate. Like what they've done with Israel, depending on their situation, is unbelievable already. Many people try and undermine it. But the effects of what Yemen did inside of Israel are beyond what anyone thinks, beyond what many people even dream about. Bankruptcy of its main Eilat port, they shut down completely. We had one of the articles in Israel recently mocking Benjamin Netanyahu's Super Sparta statement, saying, Super Sparta, Israel is in a significant problem. And they're talking about the Houthi threat in the Red Sea, the dependence on imports and exports and political state pressure. They require us to find creative solutions which are currently not in sight. The writer said, I don't see any strategic treatment at the state level. Why? Well, because Benjamin Netanyahu is blind. He's a blind man, only interested about his own things. Therefore, these attacks are extremely effective coming from Ansarullah. However, they're downplayed. And of course, they would be downplayed, especially by shameful countries sitting there doing nothing, but giving lip service 24/7, all talk, no action, blah, 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 and doing nothing to actually protect the people. And by the way, no one's asking you to go to war with anyone. As a matter, you know what? No one's entitled to ask someone to go to war. Okay, let's put it this way. Assuming that's the case, and I might be wrong, maybe they are entitled. Have you used your financial and diplomatic leverage? You haven't. If they used their financial diplomatic leverage against Israel and the genocide supporting states, it would have been over. Because these people worship money. They'll coat it with like Israel and the state and Zionism and religion, and they worship money. Eventually, hurt them there, they'll back down. And that's what Yemen is doing because they know what hurts them. But that is, this recent move from Yemen has bigger meanings, by the way, and there are hidden messages for those who aren't really reading properly. And these messages are, the resistance fronts haven't said their final word. At all, by the way. Yemen didn't say its final word. Hizbullah in Lebanon did not say their final word. And if we take Lebanon for 1 second, Hizbullah, a movement that without it, there wouldn't be a Lebanon as we know today, because they liberated the South, they expelled the Zionist occupation, they liberated Lebanese lands, they fought Israel. We saw them liberate Lebanese territories. We saw them fighting when Al-Aqsa flood happened, but we didn't see them so far supporting Iran when Iran is attacked. Iran was attacked. Many people thought, oh, Hezbollah might join them immediately because, well, they're heavily backed, and they're not just heavily backed. They pledge allegiance to the supreme leader. Like, it's not like other movements. Yemen is not like that. Gaza is not like that. Hezbollah in Lebanon, they pledge allegiance to the supreme leader of Iran. If there is an attack against Iran, a large-scale attack that the United States would potentially participate in, what are they gonna expect that all of these fronts are gonna remain silent? Assuming it would go to a war of attrition, by the way, that Israel wouldn't be able to handle anyway. But hey, they're stupid. And they have made so many stupid things in the past 2 years, like irreparable damage to how they are viewed globally. Even if there's peace or a ceasefire tomorrow, Israel is not going to recover from this. Israel's doomed up until Zionism is dismantled. You can forget about recovery from what they've done. It's everywhere. They can buy TikTok, they can buy whatever they like. They can do whatever they like. It's everywhere. And they wouldn't be able to silence the truth. Therefore, there are many things to calculate. So Yemen, in essence, is telling them, if you want to go on a war with Iran, and if you want to escalate with Gaza, or if you want to apply pressure on the Palestinian side to accept a surrender deal, we have more in store for you. And that also applies to Lebanon too. Because again, many parties did not say their final word. Likewise with Iraq. They had a certain deal, but there are talks now with Iran and the Iraqi officials to not allow any sort of Israeli use of its airspace in an attack against Iran. Like Israel, because there's America has a lot of influence there, still have a huge base there. And they allow Israel to conduct attacks from there. And they want, and that's one of the reasons that all of the supposed deal, security deal with Syria is being delayed. They want a free movement all across of Syria, so they can attack Iran whenever they want and occupy lands and what have you. With Iraq, however, they are using the airspace with the blessing and support of the United States because they still have influence there. Iran is talking to them, telling them that you can't allow the airspace to be used, and they're working on certain mechanisms so they don't allow it. From an Israeli perspective and from an American perspective too, all of these developments that Iran is having in the region mean that there might be certain restrictions and changes in the future. What does that mean? Well, that means to them, i.e. Israel and the United States, the biggest window of opportunity is now. Why? There haven't been the developments that Iran wanted on a regional scale yet. However, they're getting more fighter jets now. They're getting more technology. More shipments are coming from China and Russia. Reports from North Korea too. They're strategically in peak readiness. And if they leave it for too long, it's going to be a problem. And by the way, from an Iranian perspective, we know how Iran plays. Iran plays waiting for them to attack them. So no one can have any sort of argument. Although Israel and the United States show no regard whatsoever to anything called international law. They mock it. They created it to control other nations. But for some reason, Iran still abides by that. As in, if you attack us, we will attack you. And under clause 52 of the UN Charter, we have the right to attack you back, and no one can talk to us. Which was when Iran attacked Israel, by the way. When IRGC figures were attacked in Syria, and when Israel had an assassination in Tehran, and then when Israel attacked Iran. So they could be waiting for that. But there's one thing that is changing recently. The senior military advisor to the supreme leader, he said that the best form of defense is attack. And to defend ourselves very well, we need to attack. More calls now also as well in Iran to conduct a preemptive strike because they know it's coming. And if they're not going to conduct that attack against Israel, it's only a matter of time. Because remember, when initially, firstly, no one was expecting Iran to respond to Israel's attack, by the way. Then they shook the whole world with this surprise attack against Israel, the biggest drone and missile attack in history at the time, in April 2024. Then there was the assassination. Several months passed, so people would start to say, oh, no, it's going to happen. It's not going to happen. several months. Look how long it's taking them. What are you doing? What are you waiting for? Da, 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 da. And then it happened again. Now we are in the same situation. The situation of the point between that next attack. Both Netanyahu and the United States consider Iran to be the head of the snake. Tom Barak said that. As a matter of fact, Tom Barak said, yeah, we actually armed the Lebanese army to fight Lebanon, to fight Lebanese movements, not to fight Israel. We're not going to arm to fight Israel. But they are our enemy, and Iran is our enemy, too. But then again, he's saying, oh, they don't have an incentive to disarm because Israel is attacking everyone. So what did that tell us, really? Well, that tells us that there are peak tensions happening here. Firstly, they're having this stunt of the supposed peace deal. That's nothing but a surrender, wholesale of Palestine deal inside of Gaza. Massive stunt. It was effective to a large extent, you have to say. And having this smoke screen of political progress when really and truly they're only planning to conduct more attacks and escalate their attacks in the region.